Okay, says we're live. Let's not waste any time. Let's just get right to it. Welcome to Sharks Night Shift, everybody. What am I doing here? I'm lost in my own buttons. Oh, there we go. Ready for the program. Kind of like tonight's game, how looked like the Sharks scored first. Instead, they didn't. Then they took a penalty. And then the Blues scored. And then the Blues never looked back. Kind of unfortunate tonight that the end result is a loss in this game alone, but it sets a bigger picture of the road trip that was and wasn't for San Jose. Dynamite 4-1 win to start it against the Flames. Dynamite win last time 4-1 against the Minnesota Wild. But a clunker in Winnipeg, a clunker against the Avs, and honestly another clunker tonight against the St. Louis Blues. 4-1 is our final from the show me state of Missouri. Welcome to Sharks Night Shift. I'll take all your questions and comments as we go. First off, thank you for being here. Thanks for waiting a couple extra minutes. I think we signed off a television at like 8:03, had to grab a few things, upstairs, downstairs, back upstairs, and it's 8:14, almost 15. So trying to do my best to get on here on YouTube as soon as I can following these games. And in tonight's loss, you know, sometimes it's just simple, straightforward. There's not a lot to break down or look at. Tonight, I feel like there's actually a lot of different elements that deserve discussion because this one was not as simple as just pedestrian 4-1 loss. This defeat kind of had some hallmarks of other Sharks losses we've seen this season and stuff that I hope they can get away from. I hope they can avoid these trends moving forward, specifically this, allowing goals in all three periods. This is probably like already in 16 games, I'll bet you tonight was the third or fourth time probably. I wish I had it in front of me, should have looked it up. But yeah, third or fourth time where they've allowed goals to the opponent in every period. You're not going to win many games when you don't have a single shutdown period. Not to mention you need to do your own scoring. But that kind of sets a precedent. And also another game now. I think somebody mentioned this was twice in their last 4 games, but it's been a couple times this year, even more than that, where they have not drawn a penalty for an entire 60 minutes. Now, a lot of people are going to go straight to the officiating, even when I say it. And I actually don't mean it in that way. What I'm saying is that a lot of nights, if you don't play a certain way, you're not going to force the opponent to take a penalty. You're not imposing your game on them, and it's going to show. And I feel like tonight that was the case. Now, it didn't help that LeBanc had that trip that St. Louis took offense to, and I understand that. Gadjevich took a penalty, a tripping penalty. Burns had a tripping penalty. Weatherby had a cross-checking penalty. So the Sharks were in the box all 3 periods. The Blues never had that fate. Again, I'm not here talking about the officiating with that. I'm saying it's the way the Sharks are playing on certain nights. But all of that kind of is tonight's game, and that's kind of the focus here. Step back, because you know another issue that's kind of being realized here is we get to about the quarter point of the season. Believe it or not, 4 more games by the end of this homestand, this next upcoming homestand, we are a quarter of the way through the season. It's early enough to gauge trends, to figure out what the team is made of, to kind of figure out what's next. And one of the trends is that the Sharks are capable of statement wins. We've seen it the night where, 7 players a couple Saturdays ago tested positive, and the Barracuda come up, and they make a statement with that win. Starting this road trip in Calgary, 4-1, statement win. Last game against the Wild, who had come in winning 5 of their last 6. You beat them, and you scored all 3 periods. Statement win. But between those dots, right, if we're connecting the dots, there's too much space and there's too much room for other dots that aren't there. Does that make sense? Like, they're not able to be consistent with wins or statement wins. And at some point, over the course of an 82-game season, you're going to notice this even more. That, hey, they can beat a lot of different teams on any given night. They can beat any team on any given night. But the problem is if you don't do that consistently enough, it kind of says, it dictates where you're at as a team. You're capable of this sometimes, but you're not capable of this all the time. So that's kind of a bigger picture thought. The Sharks allowed 48 shots to the Blues tonight. And if you're just, tomorrow morning checking out a score, or even if you've watched this YouTube video in its first, 5 minutes or so, you're thinking, well, did James Reimer have a blow up? Was Aiden Hill in there? Like, what happened to the Sharks defensively where they allowed goals in all three periods? Well, one was on the power play, but 48 shots allowed by the Sharks, taken by the Blues, including 19 in the second period. I thought James Reimer with his 44 saves was actually really good. In fact, if it wasn't for him being on top of things, I would honestly tell you that the Sharks might lose this game 5-6-1. Definitely a couple chances that he was there for the save and kept his team in the game. So I think that's probably important to take note of. Going back to the Logan Couture goal that got overturned. Plain as day on the replay. Honestly, in real time, it was not that apparent. Maybe it's just the camera angle down the blue line of where Dahlen was and where Couture was. And actually kind of, as you watch it, kind of focused on Logan with the toe drag across the line, right before the line, I should say, actually. And so that timing threw Dahlen off. He's offside. They take the goal back. It's crazy, the sequence of events right there. Instead of San Jose being up 1-0 first half of that first period, they're not. Then they take a penalty, and then they get scored on the first power play that St. Louis has. By the way, interesting what happens when the top power play team in the league, the Blues, meet the top penalty kill team in the league, the Sharks, tonight, and what happened their very first try. I do think, though, it's, you look back at the overall big picture of tonight's game, the Blues were the better team. But what happened? Like, what happens if the Sharks score first there? Is the rest of the night guaranteed to go like it did? Did the Sharks still end up losing 4-2? Or does scoring first have more of a factor and a play in the rest of the result? I'm actually here to tell you that I think on certain nights, you throw that first punch, you demoralize the Blues a little bit. They came in having won a single time in their last 6 games. And that's why you saw Bortuzzo and Middleton drop the gloves 3 seconds in. I don't know how most people feel about it, but I think it is interesting when, that orchestrated fight happens right off the opening draw. Who requested it? Why did they want it? Who's going to benefit more from it? Middleton took care of Bortuzzo with the hands, right? But it still gets the Blues bench going. It's what Bortuzzo wanted to do. And Middleton after the game said, well, it's one of those things where if they ask, you can't be the guy to turn it down. I know that's hockey culture. But man, think about what you might have gave the Blues. Now, the Sharks look like they scored first still. But I'm just saying, that's like saying, hey, we're struggling over here. We want to fight you. We want to get our guys going. Why would you offer them that opportunity? If it's customary or not, why give the opponent that chance? I could talk about Timo Meier and Jonathan Dahlen all in one swing here, and I think I'll do that in just a second. Let me just make sure that tonight the live chat is actually working. Oh, it is. Look at that. It's not flickering. We might have it fixed. I may not have to order my part from Amazon. Marty T says, no rescheduled games for you, Sharks. We're not even giving you 2 linesmen. Yeah, there was that, huh? That was a factor by the end of the game. The Blues are a good team for one thing. Now, when you say that, Aaron, they're good for one thing or they're just a good team? No, I think they are a good team. They're way better than 9-5-2 suggests, and they're not a team that should have lost 5 of their last 6. Jordan Binnington is on the outs right now. Ville Husso, right, had one performance this season, a shutout on October 25th against the Kings the night before the Blues played the Sharks. After that, in that game, 34 saves. After that, goes on COVID protocol. Had not played since October 25th before tonight. So what a change of scenery for them. You definitely, I'm not here to say they won in spite of Binnington, but, a team that's struggling, sometimes you just need that fresh coat of paint. The USA is saying hi to me, so I'll say hi right back to you. Reimer definitely had a great game. He's been solid for us, and I'm excited to see we signed him for the year. They've had 2 rough weeks. They'll get back into the form you feel like. Look, I think that's certainly the hope. The good news is this team has already established what they're capable of. This team has already established that character-wise, they've got it together, that they're not going to unravel. Now, consistency is another thing, right? Like it's one thing to say that you're capable of, beating the Blues or beating the Wild or beating Calgary, but consistently, can you get those results? You agree on this one? I agree on this one. Too many turnovers. Guy tried not sticking their guy. Sorry, I think there may be some autocorrect going on there. I think I know what you're trying to say. No, and Aaron, I'm not trying to say the Blues are a bad team. I'm just saying that coming in, you want to capitalize on momentum, and I think that's what the Sharks found is that it was not their night. The timing was. They just lost to Arizona, for goodness sake. So, this goes to show you that you don't know what to expect on every night, but the Sharks look a little bit inconsistent. And I think Brett Hedican had a tremendous point. I think this is a tremendous point by Brett Hedican that some nights you're not going to have your A game, and you got to have your B game. Not all your lines are clicking. Defensively, you're making some mistakes, whatever it is. Like, it's hard to be perfect at this level, facing this kind of competition on an every game basis. It's clearly, that separates really good players from the greatest ones. The greatest ones never have an off night. But really good players are still able to find their B game. And that's such a mentality, that's such a respectable thing. It essentially says that even on your off nights, you still put yourself in position to win games. Tell me tonight, in a 4-1 loss, that the Sharks were ever really in position to win the game. Not early when it looked like they scored first. They made it 2-1. Timo fed Dahlen. Okay, we're almost halfway through the night. But it still felt like, St. Louis had already scored an early second period goal. It just felt like an uphill battle the entire evening. There is something to say about bringing your B game. I know that's not sexy, and that's not optimal, and that's not the number one game plan. But to be a really deep team, to be a consistent team, sometimes it takes your B game on those nights instead of your D game. Haven't been able to buy a power play lately. I see that comment there too. And I think it's twofold. There are some nights where the officials don't give them the calls. But that's my focus. Check this out. My focus is less on that and more on what did you do to earn enough power play opportunities? How did you make it so that you took it out of the officials' hands? Like you drew a trip, you drew a hooking call, you drew, a stick infraction. Like you draw penalties based on the way you're playing. And those two trends, I'm telling you, games where they don't draw a single penalty and games where the opponent scores in every period, those are two trends to try and buck like ASAP. Does this team need Kane if he can rebuild relationships in the locker room? You know what, Christopher? It's an unknown to everybody right now. And when I say everybody, I mean those of us on the outside looking in of this team. What's going to happen on November 30th, I think, is the Sharks' 22nd game. They're in New Jersey that night. What should already be happening right now if, in fact, he was to rejoin the team? Nobody's heard anything. Nobody knows anything. It's either being kept entirely quiet or there's just nothing going on. It's one of those two things. I've seen stranger things happen before in sports where he could never join them, or I've seen stranger things happen where he could join them and, all this animosity that people talk about, it goes away or it's moved on from. I don't know. I certainly don't know. But I'll tell you what I am interested in to find out like right around the corner, because we're literally 12 days away from November 30th in New Jersey. Aaron says, as a diehard Sharks fan, saying that the Blues are a good team and you shouldn't be too down about this loss. I mean, I think so, Aaron, but I think it is the opportunity to face a team that had been struggling, that had lost 5 of 6, that honestly in the first meeting, November 4th, I think that was, that the Sharks had a 2-1 lead in that game at one point. The Sharks can play with the Blues. There's certain levels of losses. Like sometimes you're out there, you didn't even have a chance. And tonight was not necessarily that. I mean, it kind of felt like that midway through and maybe by the end, but in reality, they haven't proved they can play with them for 60. The Sharks haven't proved that against St. Louis, but they've done enough in other games to let you know they can beat this type of opponent. They just haven't done it often enough. I know 7 guys who might have a valid opinion on tonight's game. I don't know what that means. Sharks needed another fight in the second period when they required a boost. It's hockey. Burns against O'Reilly? You want to see Burnsy drop the gloves? Bugner needs more grit. Promote some of the Barracuda players. Look, I don't know. I think a lot of times you've seen it. I'm a broken record. You've seen it. You just haven't seen it often enough. Let me go back to Timo Meier and Jonathan Dahlen. Let's begin with Timo. Another point tonight. That's now 15 in his first 11 games on the season. Points in 4 games straight. Also points in 10 of the 11 hockey games he's played so far this season. What more can you say? The way he assisted Dahlen was exactly what you want Timo doing. Winning a puck battle on the inboards, using his body, the vision, controlling the puck, feeding it to Dahlen, bang. Sharks goal just like that. That line is impressive. That trio is impressive. And let me switch gears to Jonathan Dahlen. He has scored goals in bunches. I think a couple games with 2 each. It had been 3 games for him without a point. But to jump right back on the score sheet tonight, I mean, it continues this pace for him of 7 goals now in his first 16 NHL games. How does this turn out? I'm crazy interested to see what a full season for Jonathan Dahlen looks like. And for whatever reservation there was surrounding William Eklund, can he sustain it for an entire season? Obviously, he won't get that chance, but there's everything there about Jonathan Dahlen which makes you think he will be just as effective in game 40 as he will in game 60, as he will in game 80 and 82. And hopefully round 1, game 1, if you know what I'm saying. But Jonathan Dahlen continues to be impressive. And I think I've said it before, as much as there is, some hangover about the Eklund situation and the timing wasn't right, Sharks felt they made the best decision for him. I think there is so much upside to Jonathan Dahlen to watch this season. All right. There are some other things here in the chat. I could do that. You guys want to rattle through some of that real fast? Let's go ahead and do that. Speaking of reservations, Samuel's about to go snatch me some dumpling time. What? It's food? Isn't it a little late? It's 8:30. You're going out for food right now? At least I think that's what you're mentioning here. Do we need more guys who are willing to fight? Oh, Jody Shelley. That's a classic reference right there. I mean, you're more than 10 years old with that reference. Not you're 10 years. You're more than 10 years ago with that reference. Come on, Brazil. Get it right here. Meier, super fin stick. Fantastic. I like that. You'd like to see more Barracuda players in the lineup. And I just want to clarify here, what you saw in those 6 games, that era, that charcuterie era, 3-2-1, you saw a lot of players that gave a burst. And by the end of those 6 games, you could tell they were waiting for the cavalry to come. I think that's the tough thing about younger players, and we've seen it so much with the Sharks across these last couple of years. They come up, They make an impact. They get everybody super excited. But then the hard part is, and we know this around the NHL, we know this in professional sports, it is difficult to get into a league. It's difficult to crack a roster. But the hard part is staying there. The hard part is being consistent. The hard part is doing that over and over and over again. In fact, it's okay to make things here, like not understandable. I'm just saying to relate to them. I tell people this a lot. Could any one of you be the host of Sharks Pre and Post Game Live? I bet you could. I mean, look, if I can do it, you could definitely do it. But the hard part is not coming in the studio and doing it just once. The hard part is how do you do it, 4 times in 7 days and not really repeat yourself. And let's say there's a couple losses in there and you're trying to feel like what comes next and the pace of this. The hard part is doing it over and over and over and being successful with it. And I'm just saying as it relates to young Barracuda players right now who want to be permanent Shark players, that's kind of the difference, is the repeatability of their performance. So, I guess I could take a couple more comments here. Love the aviation side. Thank you. I have the aviation channel running. 20 plus years as a commercial pilot. Well, I would say I was chasing the dream at a different point in my life. Now it's just kind of something that I love aviation. I might get back to it someday, in some capacity. I don't know what, but I make videos. I like flying, and so I make flying videos on my other channel. Never too late for some dumplings. Okay. I don't disagree. But do you want a guy like Haley back, Michael Haley back? I mean, I don't know. You have guys that can drop the gloves, be physical. You've got Middleton who did that tonight. Gadjevich fought, was that 2 games ago? You've got those guys. So, all right. Oh, I appreciate that, Wheezing Lungs. I look forward to talking with all of you after these games. And with that said, I think that's it. I think I'm wrapping it up. I also think, by the way, I think I'll do a live stream maybe tomorrow night. We'll see how the schedule plays out. Totally separate from Sharks. I mean, we could talk Sharks. We could talk A's. I could crack a beer. But for right now on this Thursday night, I'm going to put this 4-1 loss behind us. A lot of Sharks games have been 4-1 this year, for the good and for the bad. Interesting how that's happened. Just to recap, Blues scored in all 3 periods. Sharks got power plays in none of the periods. Sharks had the opportunity to make it 2 wins in a row, put together something special, have a 3-2 road trip. Instead, it's 2-3. And now they go back home for the next 4 against some very difficult opponents. All right, I will talk to you again, like I said, probably tomorrow, but for sure on Saturday night. Don't forget to subscribe and maybe like this video if you actually did. Good night.